Hello and welcome to Interviews with My Counsellor podcast series. This is episode 4 and my name is Carol and I'm joined by my counsellor, Dr Petro Booysen. Hi Petro.
Hi Carol and good day dear listeners. Thank you for joining us for this episode of this podcast again today.
Fantastic. Well, today we're going to be having a look at concepts around living in the present. But first, I'd just like to quickly recap on what we discussed in our last episode, which was on rumination. We talked about having the same negative thoughts over and over again and how this rumination actually is a driver for depression and anxiety. And there we discussed some strategies on how to deal with these thought storms. And two of those that I found useful are living in the present and gratitude. So I'm just briefly going to talk about those and then Petro is going to give us her wisdom. Years ago, I read Slowing Down to the Speed of Life by Richard Carlson and Joseph Bailey. And it really opened my eyes to how paying attention to the moment and living in the moment helps you find joy. And an example of that was I was swimming in the beautiful sea, lucky enough to be in the south of France. And the water was so lovely and warm. And I was swimming around enjoying it. But then I started to feel sad that I'd be leaving France the next day. And so I was swimming around and then I thought about the concepts that Richard Carlson and Joseph Bailey brought up in his book and thought, no, hang on, just enjoy this moment now, be fully present in the moment, and that way you will enjoy it and not lose that precious time. So I did that, and as a result of that, I actually have such a strong memory of that swim more than 20 years later. And that really changed my whole perspective on not dwelling in the past and not trying to predict the future, which I couldn't predict, and actually live and appreciate the moment that we have now. And a very nice saying on that from Eleanor Roosevelt was that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. So I think that's a lovely summation of that concept.
Lovely, Carol. And I can just imagine, as you're telling the story, I can just imagine that swim and that beautiful realization. Thank you for that.
That's all right. The second concept that I wanted to bring up was gratitude and how that's helped me in my life to be able to focus on the present and therefore live in the moment. And what I've been doing is making a list of everything that I'm grateful for every day, and being able to look at that list then helps me refocus on more positive things and gives me a different perspective. So those two aspects of living in the present and also being grateful for everything good in my life has helped me deal with my mental health problems. Yeah. So Petro, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Carol, what two beautiful and powerful practices you are talking about there. I would like us to reflect a bit today on presence and how that aligns with who or what we are, and how this impacts our well-being. And I love that you introduced presence for us there with such a beautiful story. Carol, I want to also remind the listeners of, in our previous episode, we spoke about the blue sky metaphor And we said we are the blue sky. The blue sky doesn't come and go or change. It is the clouds that come and go. And you cannot be that changes all the time. For example, our thoughts. You are the unchanging presence before your thoughts. And you have always been that. And so we will focus on that today. So as we said up to now, we are aware of our thoughts and feelings. It is not what we are. And let's start off with having a little bit of a play. I'm going to ask you, dear listeners, if for a moment you are not holding a single thought, what is still here? Go ahead and just have a play with that. And even if you want to pause and come back to the recording, but if for a moment you are not holding a single thought, what is here? What do you notice that doesn't come and go? What is that is always here when we are not holding a thought? And just noticing, just playing with it. So we're saying that awareness is aware of the spacious, silent now in which all experience arise. And that holds all that arise. That is here now. So awareness remains. It is always present through all experience. What we are aware of change. But the fact that we are aware doesn't change. This is not something that we get better at. This is what we are already. And with that little practice that we just had a go with, did you notice, dear listener, that silent background awareness that remained? Did you notice what that felt like? So presence is the awareness, aware of the peaceful, spacious, silent now in which all experience arise, and that holds all experience that occur that is here now. So in other words, the peaceful, ever-present background of all that arise or of all experience. So let's do that exercise again. If I say to you again, if for a moment you are not holding a single thought, what is still here? And do that right now. See if for a moment you're not holding a single thought. What do you notice? What is here? That beautiful, ever-present, peaceful background that is always here. moving on from that exercise, Carol just reminded us of that beautiful book, Slowing Down to the Speed of Life. Dear listeners, I want to propose that we consider slowing down to the speed of presence.
Wow.
Yeah. What is that? So if we think slowing down to the speed of presence, Carol, that's got a feeling to it, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah. And guys, this is it. It is all about presence. That's it. That's the bottom line. It's all about presence. And let's explore a bit further why I say that. So you'll remember we alluded before to clarity that doesn't come from the mind, from our thinking, so to speak. Clarity comes from before our intense thought struggles. You know those thought struggles that we all have where we really efforting to try and work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Carol, don't we all have those intense
Absolutely.
struggles? Yes. Yeah. So clarity comes from presence and stillness, where we hear our wisdom. So we are busy pointing towards slowing down and quieting down. This also ties in with what we discussed before in terms of suffering and resistance. So we say resistance feeds suffering. Non-resistance says this is what seems to be occurring now. So you'll remember from our previous discussions, the position I take is what I experience and what I feel. The narrative and the resistance locks me into the suffering. And the more we fight with what is, and that one that we all know, and the more we fight with how it should be, the more locked in to suffering we are.
That's so true, Petro.
Yeah, again, Carol, I think that's one that we can all relate to, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, Carol, people would sometimes hear that and say, but does this mean that I then do nothing at all? And acceptance doesn't mean that we make no change and that we take no action. Hi. Acceptance says that when we can say, this is how it is, and if this is how things are, then we have the clarity to say, if this is how it is, and if this is how it's going to be, what are my options? Or we'll say, okay, what then? Or what now? Do you relate to that one?
I so do. I think that's absolutely very powerful.
So acceptance can be immensely powerful, hey? And it's powerful because it opens up the potential to respond constructively. We can see how to respond more clearly. Hence, we say that acceptance is so powerful.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's so right. And I found in my life that the more I resist the whole idea that I have an obstacle in front of me,
Yes.
the more unhappy I become. And it's a very powerful learning curve to try and adapt to.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then that moment of letting go, hey, how we then have the freedom to say, okay, what now? What then? Now, remember a moment ago we said, when we spoke about presence and what presence is, we said the peaceful, ever-present background before thought. When we shift our focus and we get present, the mind clears. And there's a good feeling there. Now that is letting go. There's lightness and freedom to respond appropriately. So in terms of what we said just there, Carol, hey, that lightness and freedom to respond appropriately once we let go. So letting go also doesn't mean that, oh, well, okay, then I do nothing. Letting go helps us to shift to the peaceful, ever-present background before thought, where there's a lightness and a freedom to see how to respond appropriately.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so in other words, when we let go, the story collapses. And what remains is what seems to be occurring now. So when the story collapses, what we're left with is just what seems to be occurring now. So our ground of being, or our essence, finding our essence, finding our truth, is about letting go. And I wonder if each one of us ask ourselves, what can we let go of today that takes us to the spacious, rich, right now, the richness of the right now? If we ask ourselves just in our inner dialogue, what else can I let go of today? It just takes me to that spacious presence. You know, Carol, this also reminds me of going with the flow of life. And trusting that we can go with the flow of life. What does that mean to you?
Well, thank you for your insightful words. They're really fantastic. I'm really interested to talk about going with the flow of life, because as you've taught me, the more we resist the obstacle in our lives, the more we suffer. And I remember a wonderful story you told me about a rock in a river and how the rock represents our obstacles. And if we just look at the rock in a river, how the water doesn't try to fight the rock, it just goes around and flows around the rock. And so there's no point in trying to blame the rock or wishing the rock wasn't there, We just have to go with the flow. And just speaking more generally about going with the flow, I found in my life that times when I'm struggling to do something, like preparing for today's episode, I've had times where it's just not working. It's just not helping. And I can't find the words that I want and the flow isn't there. But then I took a break and had a shower and had a very therapeutic cup of tea and start singing loudly at the top of my voice, my favorite power ballads, and had a lovely little one-person party. And having left it and just said, I'm not going to keep fighting this. This is not working now. I'm just going to have a break.
Yeah.
And as soon as I turned off my mind, somehow the thoughts began to come back to me and I was able to flow with them. And it reminds me of another story, which I'm afraid, dear listeners, is about the sea again. But this time I was swimming in New Zealand. I found myself fighting to swim, and I'm not a bad swimmer. So I was thinking, what's going on here? I'm just fighting it. I'm fighting it. This is not relaxing. But as soon as I stopped and took a moment, I found that I could get back into the flow of the water and that the water was in line with what I was doing. And suddenly I was relaxed and enjoying myself again because I wasn't fighting it.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful example of presence and flowing with presence. And as we said earlier, slowing down to the speed of presence. Oh, that really brings it home for us, Carol. Yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder if I can, at this point, share a little poem that I wrote. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, well, let's have a go.
Yay.
It's called Let It Go. It says, the thought about yesterday, the thought about tomorrow, the thought about you, the thought about me. Be here now. No thought. See what that is like. Just for a moment. See what that's like. There we go, my attempt at poetry.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Carol, I also have a little acronym to share with the listeners. And if we take the word safe and we turn that into an acronym, we find the safe space of presence. So let's take the S, and let's say the S is for stopping, getting still, shifting to stillness, shifting to the silent now before thought. The A is for awareness. And let's ask ourselves, am I aware? And just notice, if you ask yourself right now, am I aware? What do you notice? What is that feeling that you notice? And then, yes, the F is for feeling. Notice the peaceful, spacious feeling. And the E is for essence. That's what we've been talking about. Finding our essence. letting go from our place of essence. We are safe. We can trust this quiet, spacious place of presence. And dear listeners, I want to suggest that you use this little acronym as you go. And when you find yourself, maybe, let's say, in a spot of bother, just quickly work through the acronym and remember the S is for stop and shifting to stillness. And the A is for awareness, noticing that awareness, asking yourself, am I aware? And the F is for feeling, noticing the peaceful, spacious feeling. And knowing with that, there's our essence. We can trust that safe space. So I hope we will all remember to have a play with that one.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, Carol. Now, at this point, is there anything that you want to add? Or would you like us to go straight into our meditation?
Well, if we could go straight into a lovely meditation, that would be great. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Okay, dear listeners, as before, just finding yourself a space, a spot to maybe sit down or lie down, and just start to notice your breath. Just start to notice the fact that you are breathing. So just starting to notice the inhale and the exhale. And the meditation that we're doing today is based on the beautiful work of Loch Kelly. That's Lochkelly. And I will definitely recommend that people take a look at his beautiful work, books, and meditations. So as we're sitting there and we're just noticing our breath, awareness will unhook from thought. And as we've seen before, awareness knows how to do this. So we're just allowing awareness to unhook from thought and just to shift back, just to shift focus to hearing. And let's just start to notice all the sounds around us. Whether it's the sound of my voice or any other sounds around you, just starting to focus on hearing the sounds around you. Let's now focus on the sounds coming into one of your ears. So we're focusing on a particular ear and we're noticing the sound coming into that particular ear. We're letting go of who is hearing and what is heard. And we're just noticing the sensation of hearing in a particular ear. So awareness is now focusing on the vibration of sound in this one small area. We're zooming in on this one small area where we're hearing sounds, the vibration of sound in one of our ears. And now we're going to expand our focus, and we're going to start to notice the space all around us through which those sounds are coming and going. So noticing all the space all around us, and see how that is the space through which sound is traveling. Let's now become particularly interested in this space through which sound is traveling. Notice that as awareness is aware of the space around us through which sound is traveling, that it feels as if awareness has opened up and is becoming one with this space. Awareness is mingling, like water into water or air into air, in the space all around us. Let's just pause and enjoy this spacious, silent awareness. We're bathing in a spacious, silent awareness. And we are one with the spacious, silent awareness. And if you notice any thoughts at this point, just observe those thoughts. And then again notice, and again focus towards the stillness. So let's remain as awareness of stillness, silent, boundless, spacious being. Just being at one with this spacious, still, silent, boundless being. Let's just take a moment to just hang out, enjoying the spacious, silent awareness that is both us, in us, and around us. Dear listeners, as we now start to just shift our attention back to our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor, maybe moving our fingers, feeling sensations in the body. I want to encourage you as we're coming to the end of this practice to notice that you can take the stillness, the spaciousness, the silence with you into the rest of your day. And I want to encourage you to remember that it's just looking in the direction of presence, coming to presence, coming to stillness. And with that, thank you, dear listeners, for joining us today. And thank you, Carol, for this beautiful initiative.
Well, thank you very much, Petro. It's really wonderful hearing your words of wisdom and your beautiful meditations.
You're so welcome.
Okay, well, that's this session over. And we wish the listeners all the very best in their lives.
Thank you for joining us, listeners. All the best and goodbye.
Bye.